order. We have 2 items on the agenda. If anybody's here to make public comment on any of these items or general public comment to this committee, you can pick up these forms in the back and fill them out, hand them to the gentleman to my left, and we will call you up in proper order so you can make your comments public and before this committee. So with that, we'll begin with item number 1.
John White, City Clerk. Item 1, City Attorney and CAO reports relative to a grant award in the amount of $139,503 from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services for the Anti-Gang Initiative.
Morning.
Good morning.
Patty Huber with the CAO. The City Attorney is requesting authority to accept this grant award from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. This program was created to combat gangs through the use of law enforcement task forces and federal prosecution, which the City Attorney assists in. We are recommending acceptance of the grant funds as it does cover grant-eligible costs. The general fund will contribute a small amount towards fringe benefits only, and that is dealt with within the city's budget already.
So this covers personnel mainly?
I'm sorry?
This money will go toward personnel?
Yes, sir.
And what did you say about some of the costs, personnel costs?
Fringe benefits, the health and dental type benefits, the city will contribute a small amount. I think it's only about $1,000, a little over $1,000. The grant is covering the majority of the fringe benefits, but there's just that little gap.
Okay. All right. And this will be administered by the City Attorney's Office?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when it comes to outcomes and tracking of the success or non-success of these activities that this money is going toward, how do we measure that? How do we report that?
Councilman Peter Shutan, Deputy City Attorney, Gang Unit. We have this grant pays for 1 deputy to be over at the U.S. Attorney's Office. He is working over at the U.S. Attorney's Office handling gang and firearm-related prosecutions, and the way in which we're documenting that is the cases he's handling, the work he's doing in the field. He was directly involved with operations like the Ghost Town operation and the takedown of the gun store in Compton that resulted in about 5,000 weapons. And we are getting reports from him on a regular basis on what he's doing. He's doing trials, he's doing filings, he's working with ATF and LAPD to operate and to conduct these operations. So we're getting regular reports. So it's mainly a number of prosecutions and things like that he's doing.
You're talking about he's reporting. He calls in, talks to somebody, he writes a document, sends
we get monthly reports. Written reports.
Okay. Verbal, written, to who are the reports? Who do they go to? Who sees those reports?
The written reports come to our office, and they are in turn presented in reports to the grant folks as well. So he will present us with a written summary of what he's been doing, and we also get oral reports. We see him on a regular basis as well, and that's all documented, and we have to report on the grant as well. So
CAO's office gets these reports?
I would say not that I am aware of, but I will have to tell you the City Attorney assignment was just recently moved under my supervision, so I have not necessarily seen everything that they send to our office at this time.
Okay, I'd like some correspondence from the City Attorney's Office either agreeing to or telling this committee why they don't agree that this committee should get copies of those reports, and that is the avenue in which they should report to the council through this committee. They can be sent to the chairman, myself. You can also duplicate. I would recommend that the CAO's office get those reports too. Obviously, if there's any proprietary information or what have you, you're going to have to glean that out of the report before you let it out of the City Attorney's Office. So I'd like that response within 30 days from the City Attorney's Office to this committee as to what kind of reporting they will be doing to the council and also to the CAO's office. I would imagine that the mayor's office would be interested It's up to them as to whether or not they want that report as well. The CAO reports to both the council and the mayor. So once the CAO gets that report, you can either do it directly to the mayor's office if that's their wish, or the CAO can apprise the mayor's office, see what they want to do. Okay? And also, I'd like, on this matter before us, that the city attorney forward to my office the inception of this particular program, what the initial intent was of this program and expectation, and how that intent and expectation is being met. Has that evolved? They have higher expectations, more expectations? What have they learned from it? And why should we continue this? I'm assuming the city attorney's office would enjoy that, because when you have situations where they confiscate 5,000 firearms, I'm sure they'd love to remind us.
Do we want to brag?
What?
Do we want to brag? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would think you would. I would if I were you. But, you know, bragging can happen in various venues, but
No.
this is the policy body of the city council, so we'd like formal, notification of what's going on so that we can understand it, and then we can have less ignorance of what's going on, so we can properly support good things that go on, and also give our input when we think that things need to be either changed or reevaluated.
This is a tremendous collaborative grant that we've been working on for a couple of years now. We look forward to reporting back to you on that.
Absolutely. Put those facts to paper so that we can all understand it, and maybe we'll even brag about it ourselves. Okay? Is anybody here to make public comment on item number 1? Okay, seeing and hearing none, public comment is open on item number 1. Seeing and hearing none, it's now closed. Public comment on item number 1 is now closed. It'll be the recommendation of the chair of this committee that we concur with the actions of the Public Safety Committee to approve the CAO's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
We'll move now to item number 2.
Item 2, Port of Los Angeles report relative to gang prevention and youth programs sponsored by the department.
Good morning.
It's Mr. Lansing, would you like to go after the presentation? Okay, go ahead, proceed. State your name for the record and who you represent, and
Good morning, Mr.
tell us
Chair.
what you're doing here.
Ron Boyd, I'm Chief of Los Angeles Port Police. I'm representing the Port of LA and Dr. Nats this morning to share with you some information. It's in response to requests by the Chair about programs and activities that the Port of Los Angeles are putting on in regards to youth development and gang alternative programs. I'd like to share with you a little bit of the information that's contained in a report that was given to this committee that really talks about what the Port has done to support a number of programs focused at-risk youth and gang prevention. It's part of a broad-based educational outreach effort, and there are a number of programs that the Port has been actively participating on that we actually think that we've got some good news to report to you today. One of the best parts about it, in my estimation or in my opinion, is that all these programs, while they've been focused towards harbor area youth and we've had some great numbers to report to you, they're also consistent with the State Tidelands Trust Act, which stipulates that the programs funded by the Port are required to support commerce, navigation, and fisheries. Even so, these programs that we're able to report to you today that have been initiated by the Harbor Department are geared to assist our local youth. They're geared in giving them a greater understanding of the harbor, the port, its proximity to the city, its importance to the region and to the nation, and then to also give them an opportunity then to actually pursue jobs that are related to the maritime industry. So we've got about 7 programs I'm going to share this morning, talk to you about, but I'll just highlight the key parts. You do have the report there. It starts, though, with our Cabrillo Beach Youth Sailing Program. It's sponsoring sailing and information about boating for local youths for aged 8 to 18. The program started with a budget of $87,500 just to sponsor scholarships for about 200 at-risk youth, and these youth were 11 to 13-year-olds. And it was a program that was focused upon the Harbor Gateway and areas of the south region of our city. And the Wilmington residents that participated, they were able to get these 2-week sessions during 10 weeks of the summer months. And I personally had an opportunity to see some of the kids as they participated, and I thought that it was a great program.
What's that program called?
That's our Cabrillo Beach Youth Sailing Program.
So once a kid was in this program, what was the basic activity that they engaged in?
It was actually an excellent program because they got some of the basics of basic boating. They learned the nomenclature of a sailboat. They learned the basic dynamics of sailing, and they were actually, I guess the graduating point was to actually go out and venture on the sail. So it generated a lot of interest, and the kids were quite involved in it and with the activity itself. And I know when my officers would go by and take a look at the activity and things that were going on, they knew that these kids were quite involved.
Okay. Now, it sounds like you focused mainly on a community of young people in a geographic area, mainly. Not exclusively, but mainly, correct?
For that particular program.
For that program.
For that program.
Now, when you accepted an individual into the program or qualified them into the program or whatever process you have, what did you profile them in any way as far as this is an at-risk youth or this is some kid who just lives in the zip code and come one, come all? I mean, how do you decide?
Mr. Cardenas, I'm Julia Nagano, Director of Corporate Communications for the Port. The recruitment for the children was done by the Cabrillo Beach Yacht Club members, the volunteers. They did screen them at our request so that our scholarships went to at-risk kids 11 to 13 years old. They outreached into the local communities. They did not turn away anybody who asked to be there, but we did ask them to focus on at-risk, low-income children.
Okay, so you don't exclusively serve at-risk kids, but you try to adhere as much as possible to making sure that the majority of those kids fall into that category.
The program is an ongoing program by the Yacht Club members, so our funding went to 200 scholarships specifically focused at-risk 11 to 13-year-olds.
Oh, okay. So if the Yacht Club wants to include a kid and they're not at risk, then they'll take care of that scholarship or how to admit them.
Correct.
But you afford up to 200 slots, or did this past time, up to 200 slots of at-risk youth specifically?
Correct.
Okay. And what constitutes an at-risk youth by your standards?
We asked them to go into the low-income communities in our local communities from Harbor City, Wilmington, San Pedro, identifying kids that were not normally involved in their program and we thought would benefit from this program. We did allow them to do the screening.
Did they ask the kids if family income levels? Did they ask them anything about has anybody in your family graduated from high school? Are you in school? Did they correspond at all with the local schools where the kids go to school? I would imagine most at-risk youth in that neighborhood probably go to a public school.
Right. They went with the schools. However, I don't know the extent to which they asked those detailed questions.
Okay. I think it's really important for us to all understand that unless you're the police department, use that as an example, people just assume that you're doing the right thing, you know what you're doing, there's no need for questions, and we'll continue to fund it. Or it should continue to fund, and the program is awesome and great, and I wish we had more money for it. That's going to stop, even with the police department, when it comes to programs that deal with youth, whether it's suppression, prevention, intervention, or just programs that are addressed at youth, whether they're prevention, intervention, or suppression, or reentry, or what have you. So what I'm going to ask of the Harbor Department is that you more formalize with this yacht club, this third-party provider, as to how to document what is an at-risk youth, You can give them an outline, I would recommend, of what you'd like correspondence back to the Harbor Department so that you could keep on file who you're helping, especially when it comes to, I would imagine if a youth is there an age range, for example?
11 to 13.
11 to 13. The kid's 11, I would imagine the kid can come back when they're 12 and 13 and until they're not of age, correct?
Correct.
So also you need to document repeat recidivism in the program, et cetera. In addition to that, get a little bit more sophisticated and work with not only the Port Police, but other authorities in the community that might want to bring youth to you and say, this kid's teetering on being a real bad kid, great kid, but unless the kid's got something to focus on, we're going to lose them. Corresponding with your local senior lead officers and your local programs, et cetera. I'm sure there's a boys club out there, right? Pretty active. You know, you need to start documenting not only your outreach, but your correspondence back and forth and how effective you are in communicating with as much of the community that are trying to help the youth just like you are. Okay?
Yes.
So I need you to develop that criteria and then get that back to us. How long do you need in order to get that criteria back to us? Again, when you get back to us at that criteria, don't expect that we think it's going to be 100% done. What I'm saying is it sounds like you have a more of an informal process with a great organization, and you are in fact filling those seats or those slots with kids who need this help or need this opportunity. What we need to start doing is we need to start documenting that better because, again, unless you're the police department, when it comes time that money gets tight, everybody gets swept. Everybody says, stop what you're doing. I love what you're doing, not me. But policymakers say, stop what you're doing, hold off for a while until we tell you to go ahead and spend that money again in the future. And then all of a sudden, those 200 youth are meandering around the community instead of being in your program because you can't justify how critical it is. You can't justify how important it is. You can say emotionally, look, these are kids, I can bring the last 200 in here if you want, but that's, unfortunately, that's received as anecdotal. And when it comes to tough times, and we're in tough times right now, that anecdotal information doesn't hold up to a person coming in with a badge and a uniform saying, and a gun strapped to their waist saying, we're out there helping the kids and we're preventing crime, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to be able to stand up to all of the scrutiny, stand up to all of the competition for dollars and for programs and be able to sustain your programs. I believe in what you're doing. It sounds great. And it is a great opportunity. Only God knows what inspires a kid to just say, I have something to live for. I have something to look forward to. I'm going to be somebody. Whether they're sailing or they're going to college or they're going to, pick up a golf club and say, I can beat Tiger Woods someday. Whatever. I think that's wonderful. Or I can be a police officer. Or I can run the port myself someday, right? Or I can clean up the neighborhood and do a better job than anybody else. Whatever inspires these young people, wonderful. But what we need in these young people's lives is a diversity of opportunities, a diversity of experience. And you're giving them that. But you now need to start defending what you're doing. You need to start documenting what you're doing. You need to start documenting your successes. You need to start tracking these young people and dedicating resources to doing that as well. And then what you may find is when they're, 11 to 13?
Yes.
These kids are little angels. Their grades go up, their parents are happier with them, they argue less, right? And all of a sudden when they're 14, they just revert back into, not being the little angels that they can be. You may find that, maybe we got to complement this with a program for 14, 15, and 16-year-olds, and then 17 and 18-year-olds, right? Maybe you have an Explorers program there at the port specifically with Port Police.
We do.
You follow what I'm saying? I mean,
Sure.
But if you do, show us the nexus. Show us, is there a nexus? If there isn't, why not? If there is, why? We're terrible at documenting programs that address youth in the city. Just atrociously, we just don't have the information.
We appreciate the insight. We'll certainly take it to note. Part of the discussion with staff was making sure that we were able to develop metrics that were consistent with this committee, and those are important dynamics. We want to continue the programs, and there are a number of other programs. Some of them do focus upon youths of different ages. We have the awareness programs. We have programs to get them involved. We have a program now that the port specifically is reaching into the high schools and looking for candidates, excuse me, to participate in our cadet program, where we take them out of their senior year, we pay their way through a junior college at the same time, give them a student worker job. So we try to focus on multiple ages, not just the 11 to 13-year-olds. And then there are other programs, professional student worker, an intern program with the port. But that insight's well taken because we need to be able to develop the right type of metrics, as you mentioned.
Absolutely. You have what the Harbor International Trade High School Program and Banning High School Pilot Program. Obviously, those are above 13-year-old, right? But my point is, have you developed an internal commitment at the harbor, at the port, that you say, once we have one of these kids, we own them? You get what I'm saying?
Certainly.
We want this kid to be in our midst until they go to college. We want them to be in our midst until they decide to take a job at the port. We want them to be part of us, 11 on up. You get what I'm saying?
Certainly do.
Show us the nexus. Show us the matrix. Show us how you grab these kids and you keep them. Show us why. Explain to us why one program makes sense to the other. Do they complement each other at all? You know, because sometimes, unfortunately, occupying their time is better than nothing. But I think we can do better than that, right? I think we can draw nexuses in our own minds and our own efforts with these young people. And then hopefully they draw the nexus and they get inspired to be more involved. They inspired to feel like they belong.
Certainly, we can do that, Councilman.
Now, what I asked of you on the first program, the sailing program, I'm asking that of all your programs, okay? Interpret that we want that kind of thoughtfulness, evaluation, self-evaluation, self-expectation of the port and your programs on all of the things that you're doing. And don't be afraid. If there isn't a direct nexus between one and the other, that's fine. Don't tell me there is if there isn't. If there isn't, that's fine.
Right.
Right? Just tell us what you're doing, and then I can bet you when you do that, you're going to start figuring out better ways to do what you're doing even better. And on all of the programs, who are you partnering with? Who are sending you kids? Who do you send the kids to? Who's partnering with you? Who's participating with you? Who's helping, throughout the process when they're in these programs?
That's excellent. That actually gives us something to shoot for as far as how we're administering it. A lot of those components are there, but as you mentioned, when you said if it's there, why not? Or if it is, tell the story. We need to do a better job of crafting the story. I think that the programs have been well thought out. There are a lot of partners which we haven't identified yet that are participating, not only within our own city family, but other governmental agencies, other private funded organizations. So we can tell the story and flush it out and come back to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how long do you think you need?
Councilman, if we could have 60 days, we can develop the criteria, but I will have to go back to the schools and the partners for their tracking systems, because we do have a nexus between some of the programs. For example, the ITIP youth also go on the Top Sail program, but tracking and measurements, I know, for the nonprofits is a difficult task as well.
So within 60 days would be great. I just warn you, we're going to get started at the council level with the budget process in the middle of March. Which is about 45 days or so away. So you might want to kind of get under that window, because I know that, people's times are going to be bifurcated even more when they start reporting and getting their budgets finalized and hearing the good news and the bad news and making their adjustments. So if you can do it within 60 days, that'd be great. My advice to you is try to shoot for 45. That way you don't get, pulling your hair out trying to do a bunch of reports at once.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Okay. Seems you have one of your partners here. Mike Lansing filled out a public comment card.
Morning.
Good morning.
Just here to follow up a little bit on what the speakers have said today. 7 years ago, working with Julian Nagano and the Port leadership, we developed a Boys and Girls Club right across the street from 600 public housing units. In working 4 years prior to that, we worked with the local tenants and neighborhoods and knew that there were no services down there on a daily basis for at-risk youth. Most of those children are at poverty level or within 200% for sure. And we developed, with the partnership with the Port of Los Angeles, a daily program for youth 5 to 18, providing everything from education to arts to athletics to education program called the Port Ocean Land Awareness Program, where we actually utilize some of the other programs that the Port sponsors, such as Top Sail, the Aquarium, the Maritime Museum, and we're able to utilize those other partners for our youth that most of the times, even though they live a block away from those places, they've never even seen the inside of the building before. But being in a collaboration with the Port, we've had the opportunity to show them those opportunities as well as sailing programs and others. One thing that we've really stressed is we really tried to find a way to open a teen center in the community in that area, because in our analysis there were 36 programs for preschool to elementary youth on a daily basis in San Pedro, Wilmington, and 2 teen centers. You'll find that across the city. We're not doing enough for teens. Like you said, 11 to 13, then they get 14, and there's nowhere to go, and they revert back to their family ties to gangs and everything else that's going on. So we've been trying to work to find a space for a teen center. It hasn't worked out, so what we've done is we've converted the club site. We run it for all ages till 6 p.m., and then from 6 till 9 p.m., Monday through Thursday, and 6 to 10, we run it teens only, including our college-bound program, which was in the Times last week with Steve Lopez. We have over 150 seniors alone in our college-bound program. So we're working with getting the resource to those young people so that not when they leave us at 18, they're not just back on the streets again, but they have a pathway, hopefully, to a better life. That's in collaboration with the Port.
Isn't there a union out there?
Yes.
Isn't it ILWU?
ILW, yes.
And I know we have the Port Officers Union and stuff like that, but I think ILWU, are they a healthy organization? I mean, they're doing all right?
Very much so.
Yeah. Do they have like a hall of theirs out there?
Yes.
What do they do with that hall?
Well, they have their hall that they work their dispatch out of. Then they have, I believe, a retired union members hall that they also have in that area. Not really sure what they do out of that hall. It's in Wilmington, I know that. We're building a new teen center in Wilmington too right now that should open in 3 months.
Well, I'm curious to know if there's an opportunity for the Port to work with the union and partner, kind of like what we're trying to do. We're not very good at it yet. What we're trying to do with the school district and other authorities like the city or county or what have you, and when they're going to build a school, say, wait a minute, maybe we can partner. We'll help out with a gym or a library or what have you, so we can have community use and have joint use opportunity. I'm wondering, I know the Tidelands Authority doesn't allow the Port to do certain things with their money or what have you, but I would imagine that there could be a nexus drawn between the unions / training and or recruiting of potential workers and things of that nature, and working with the youth in the community. And I would imagine that if you had a training facility and it was used in certain hours of the day for that purpose, there's probably no law against them opening that up to the public for other purposes and having youth activities like a youth center type facility. For example, I would think that you could have a training center around a big gymnasium. The big room is used for training or what have you when that's going on. they pulled all that stuff aside, and then in the evenings and weekends or what have you, the kids could use it as a public facility for play and activities.
There was recently a new gymnasium built in Wilmington, and the city council has asked ways to figure out a way to have programs there. That could be an opportunity to do just what you said, since the
Because you have the port, could probably bring a component of financial support to help create that facility, and then you have the union, which they have much more flexibility on what they can do with their money, and then you have maybe people like the Boys Club or what have you to partner as well. It can be a multifaceted, kind of like a trilateral commission type facility, and that everybody has their commitment. It's kind of like a timeshare as to, you know, what their activities are going to be there. They sign up for their hours and their activities and classes, and when they're not there, they turn it over to the other partners and say, you know, we're all in charge of keeping this place safe and clean and in order. We're all in charge of making sure that nothing bad happens on our facility with security and all those kinds of things, and you can share office space and things of that nature, and you can really get maximum use and then maximum benefit to the public.
Councilman, the ILWU does their educational programs through their Harry Bridges Institute, and we do work with them for in-school kinds of programs, so we will research the opportunities with that organization.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is possibly taking what they're doing already and transferring that in the near future to an actual facility where the fact that they're doing it there can actually allow the complementary activity of other things, opening it up to the community.
Yes,
For example, if they're doing their training, if a union is doing their training at a community college, well, that's already a public facility. Then it's just up to the community, talking to the community college, see what kind of access they can have to that. But if you can strategically work on finding a location that serves all the purposes well, and then strategically find the location where it could be, and then design it as this hybrid facility, and then it'll be a facility that gets maximum use by everybody who needs that kind of facility.
We'll be happy to look into that.
Okay? All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Lansing?
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Are you retired, or what are you doing with your time?
Just running the Boys and Girls
Oh,
Club.
so you
that's it.
do, that's what I thought, you do run, that's full-time job?
Full-time.
And then some?
We have 17 sites in San Pedro and Wilmington now, so mostly school sites, but 3 large sites like the one we're doing with the port.
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Good seeing you.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
All right. I'm sure if Ms. Hahn were here, she would probably have some more detailed questions of her own. I'm sure somebody from the port will go ahead and let her know some of the ideas that I threw out today. I'll let me know if she thinks it's the dumbest thing she's ever heard. I hope not. But otherwise, you know, hopefully we can move forward with that kind of activity out there in the area surrounding the port.
Thank you.
Is anybody else here for public comment on item number 2? Public comment is open on item number 2. Seeing and hearing none, public comment is now closed. Is anybody here? That concludes the specific items on the agenda. We do open up this committee for general public comment for issues and matters before this committee that are not on the agenda today. Is anybody here to speak in general public comment? I do not have any public comment cards for general public comment. General public comment is now open. Seeing and hearing none, general public comment is now closed. With that, I want to thank you all for being here. This committee is now adjourned.